Hey everyone, I think we're ready to get started. This is kind of filler. It's sort of something I've been playing with since I was in about 8th grade, and this is sort of how I got into hacking in general. What we're doing is we're playing with the post office and just poking around with it and seeing how it reacts to things, sort of black box testing. Post office is sort of neat. It's cheap delivery from coast to coast, so it's very important to our economy. It's one of the few fiscally independent government services we have. Federal Reserve Bank is another example. Some toll roads are, some aren't, things like that. But it gets no tax money, so it's sort of interesting in that regard. And if you're libertarian, that's sort of neat. And the thing I've found is really neat is that it's useful for explaining computer hacking concepts to people who aren't techies, because they can see it, and it's something that they've played with, and it's something that they fully understand how to operate. So how this started, I guess back in 8th or 9th grade, I found a BBS program that made those PostNet codes, little tall and short bars that are on your envelopes. And it was like a macro that was written for Microsoft Word 2.0, I think. And they wanted $40 for it. And I thought it was kind of cool, but I was a student at the time, and $40 was a lot of money. So I found out how to write my own. And it was kind of challenging because there wasn't really an internet yet. You couldn't just look this stuff up. And so I learned about social engineering by calling the post office and saying, hey, how do you make these little codes? And getting passed around and being told, oh, you got to call the business development office, and the business development office says, well, what's your business and what do you want to do this for? And so you make up something and they send you specifications and you read through it and you play with it and finally you get it to work right. And eventually I had a $40 program that I wrote myself. And the next year Microsoft Office had this built in, not my code. Although I did open source it and they could have stolen it, I guess. It's also kind of cheap science experiments. I see there's a couple of people who have school-age kids now. So if you're looking for things that are cheap and don't involve mold, the post office can be kind of fun. The whole thing got worse when I read... I'm sorry? Closer? Okay, I'm sorry. I was hearing feedback on the monitor. The whole thing got worse when I read the Annals of Improbable Research article, which I think has been slashed out 4 or 5 times. You've probably seen it. Basically, they took a whole bunch of weird stuff and put it through the mail without a box to see what the post office would deliver and what they wouldn't. There's also the Wired Return to Sender contest, which I guess has been running for like 7 or 8 years, where people get T-shirts every issue, by sending in the weirdest thing they can, a shoe or a tennis racket or film can or whatever. Also in college, I learned about this thing called the Domestic Mail Manual, which is now online and you can get it, but it's a phone book-sized instruction manual for how the post office operates. And there's one at every post office, and they guard it very carefully. If you want to go in and see it, you have to give them your driver's license and your car keys so you don't forget to return it. And it explains how all the machines work and how all the barcodes work and how zip codes are allocated and pretty much any technical detail that you would ever ask them. They would go to that book and look it up. And most of the time you can find it there. There's also a neat book that Johnny X pointed out called High Weirdness by Mail. It was a book full of, it's out of print now, but it was a book full of kooks, cults and alien abductees and all sorts of people that you could mail off and get stuff for, and they would just send it to you for free. So my mailbox was kind of full because I had too much free time as a student. Okay, so we're going to talk first just about number 10 letters, the usual envelopes that you get, junk mail and bills and stuff like that, and how it works. When you deposit it in the mail stream, the first thing that happens is it gets oriented and canceled. The post office is depending on an aspect ratio with your mail to be greater than something, and the something depends on what kind of mail service it is. But they're expecting it to be longer this way than it is taller this way. And they also expect it to have a front and a back. And they orient all the mail, because when you throw it in the mail bin, it just kind of gets all scrambled up there. So the first machine sorts the mail and turns it correctly and makes it face the correct way this way. And it does that with the stamp. The stamps glow under ultraviolet bead light. This is shortwave, it's higher energy. If you play with it, wear safety glasses because you'll get a sunburn on your eye. In the United States, our stamps do not glow under black lights. It's not a high enough frequency, which is kind of neat because you can have fluorescent envelopes and whatnot, and it won't mess up your system. But anyway, that's how it can orient them, and it's also how it knows where to apply the cancellation stamp. The bad part is that this has been implemented since like the 40s, and it's never been upgraded. And I think we're getting a little bit of radio interference off the mic or something. Okay. It doesn't take a lot of this glowing stuff in order to make it work. For, I think, 49 cents now, you can get a pre-stamped envelope from the post office, and it has, right now it's Ben Franklin's picture. And if you look carefully, there's just a tiny little bit of the ultraviolet tagant. It doesn't take much to trigger the machine. And then if you have a postage imprint meter, they use a different color so that it can sort it into the accounting system that will randomly check your accounts and make sure you're not printing bogus postage. So the next step that happens, and this varies a little bit. We're currently undergoing a change in the processing equipment at the post office, so some places use different stuff that can skip this stage. But the next thing they do is they scan your envelope, and they take a picture of it. And they'll spray an orange barcode in the back. They're spaced out like this one. And I apologize, this projector doesn't show the color orange. But anyway, they'll try to OCR your address and see where it's going. And if they can't OCR it, like if you have a doctor's handwriting like I do, then they send the image to Singapore, and they have people, working for 15 cents an hour or whatever, typing in the addresses. And the question that a lot of people ask me is, well, why do you need the entire address? Why not just the zip code? And the reason is they can go ahead and process automatic forwarding this way. So let's say that I used to live in Atlanta, and then I've moved to San Francisco, and I'm standing here in Nashville, and I mail a letter to my old address in Atlanta. There's no reason for that envelope to physically go to Atlanta anymore. The computer can go ahead and recode the envelope, send it straight to San Francisco, and save the post office a ton in shipping. So this has been worth it for them to do. In the process, they also add extra digits beyond the zip code. You've probably seen the 4 extra digits. There's more digits beyond that. The 4 digits are assigned sort of to help the end carrier get the trays in order. So here's an example from a street in my city. And you see the different address ranges of odds and evens have different ending codes. And that's because he goes down the odd side of the street, and then he'll turn around and he'll go down the even side of the street. So by separating them into separate codes, that helps them not have to go back and forth so much. And with really nice data systems that you can get from the post office, you can go all the way down to the route number and which stop they're on, and code all that information plus a check digit and gateway bars into the code. So it makes it pretty automatic, and it reduces a lot of the manual stuff that they have to do. If you code your stuff all the way, we usually get 48-hour delivery anywhere in the continental United States for 41 cents. It blows the pants off of Federal Express. So it's kind of neat to be able to do that. A lot of people have heard that if you have a post office box, the last 4 digits of your post office box are also the last 4 digits of your extended zip code. And this works so well that you can actually take a postcard and just write the zip code on it, and it will get there. The back side of this has the orange barcodes, and then the front you can see they've put the postnet codes on, since I didn't bother to do that. But that begs the question, can we just put the barcode on there and have it get there? And the answer is close, but not quite. Now, we took several other envelopes and we caused other kinds of errors, and we sent it to the same zip code. And what we found was that this particular stamp has got some trash on it and smudges a little bit when they run it through, and just general wear and tear. It's also missing some of the end of the R here. So we have a fingerprint of this particular stamp. And we know that this is the actual destination post office where this was stamped return to sender. So what probably happened is it arrived there, and the human who was actually stuffing them in the boxes couldn't figure the barcode out to figure out which of the boxes to get. But otherwise, it made it all the way there. So it's a last mile kind of problem. We've also tested this where we just put the box number in the barcode, and it gets there with no zip code at all. So we've been able to confirm that theory. So we can have some fun with these barcodes, and this is where it starts to get interesting. This is an envelope that we mailed from Baltimore to Atlanta. However, the tall and short barcode on this is for the tiny fishing village of Hilo, Hawaii. We mailed a regularly, normally coded envelope at the same time, and this one took an extra 2.5 weeks to get there. As you can see, it was redeposited in Hawaii. My guess is it probably went through a couple of times before they realized what was going on. Now, this isn't so important for the post office, because the post office, except for very rare occasions, doesn't have any time delivery commitments. So they do an express mail, but that's about it. And for 41 cents, they're going to get it there whenever they get it there. But let's say that somebody was mailing in a tax payment. And tax payments have to be postmarked by April 15th or whatever your extension date is. But maybe their check didn't have funds yet, and they wanted to delay it getting there, but still have an April 15th postmark. There's places in Alaska that only get mail every month. So it's going to get there, and the mail truck is going to leave, and as they're sorting it and they're trying to figure it out, they're going to go, this doesn't belong here. So it's going to sit there for 2 months. So you've introduced a 60-day delay in the payment system for 41 cents. All right, so while we're having fun with it, we decided to make up some crazy addresses. And since my handwriting only goes so far, we used some of the like church sign generator and things like that, and we made some envelopes and some postcards that had the had the address as a part of the picture. Actually, The church sign generator had no delay compared to a tracer. You know, and perfectly. Whenever I do these experiments, we send a tracer envelope that's been perfectly addressed and barcoded, so we have some baseline. Because sometimes there's weekends and seasonal volumes and so forth, so that kind of normalizes it. The one up here actually added about a day of delay to it. So we don't know if that's statistically significant or not, but the post office seems to deliver them just fine, and we've never had one of these get lost. So we decided to take the complication up a little bit. Let's try some captures and see what happens. Again, this projector is not very good on the color. This one down here, the letters are a camouflage pattern between red and green. We were testing to see if the equipment had any color blindness issues. This one, and this one all arrived with no delay. They arrived the same day the tracer arrived, which is pretty darn good. The red and green camouflage one, it is 10 days overdue, and we haven't seen it yet. Now, the really fun thing is if you figure out which of the postal employees at the counter actually are colorblind, they can't tell if there's anything wrong with this. Okay, so where's the automation going? I mentioned that the glowing stamp thing is kind of old. It's been around for decades. And the postnet codes, the tall and short bars, they're getting kind of old too. I mean, it's been a long time since I was an 8th grader. So there's some new services coming out. There's one called Planet Code, which is, unless you can read binary, it looks the same as a postnet code, except that it's longer. And it's essentially a serial number. You can buy a block of these from the post office, and anytime their automated equipment sees a letter in your block, it'll send you an electronic signal that says, hey, we're machine so-and-so, we're in this zip code, and we just saw this mail piece, blah, blah, blah. Initially, it was going to be 2 different codes, but there's a thing called one code now where you can go up and down, and it's the system that we're going to see. This system doesn't really replace delivery confirmation because there's no processing equipment at your mailbox. So we don't know, while we can trace your letter through the mail system and we can kind of see how it's going around, we can't make sure that it actually got to you unless you are like a major business or something like that. This is neat for mass mailers because they can, let's say I was Sears and I was going to send out a new catalog. And so I throw my catalogs out in the mail stream, and now I can kind of see where they're being distributed. And I can see how long it's taking to get across the coast or in different areas. And I might be able to do optimization things like decide how long I'm going to run my sale, or I might say, make plans on how many people are going to be in my call center for different time zones based on when people are actually getting the sale flyers, and things like that. So it's kind of neat. But the really cool thing is that it can go backwards as well and do what we call incoming mail reply. American Express is doing this now, where on your payment stub, when you stick it in a little envelope, it has a unique barcode for your stub. So when you deposit it in the mail, they get a signal from your local ADC, and it says, hey, this envelope is on the way. And they go, oh, well, Mr. Smith has just sent us a payment. Well, they know your minimum payment, and they know, your history and kind of if you pay off all the time or if you don't or whatever. So they have an idea how much cash flow to expect in because they can see the money coming in. They might be able to do some customer service things too, like if you just mailed a payment that maybe it hasn't gotten here yet, not charge you a late fee that you're just going to contest later. So there's some cool stuff that you could do with it. But there's some downsides to this too because there's no authentication on these whatsoever. Since the numbers are assigned atomically in large blocks, if you had access to an outgoing mailing and wanted to really mess with American Express, you could start putting their barcode number on your mailings. Or maybe if you didn't want a late fee on your Amex bill, you could send your mother a letter and include their Planet code. And you can separate the tall and short bars so you can include her zip code on the top and the Amex's Planet code on the bottom, and the post office doesn't know the difference because they didn't mail it. So there's some issues there that they're going to have to work out. So into more poking and prodding, Lumpanics had a book called How to Screw at the Post Office. I don't know who wrote it. It's pseudonymous. But he came up with a neat way of doing some tests without actually breaking the law. The issue with a lot of things in security with the post office is that, well, there's not a lot of security, or it's just obscurity, not really security. And they mostly secure things by having really, really heavy penalties. Nobody wants to go to federal prison and say, yeah, I'm here because I stole 41 cents of postage. Especially when you consider that, murderers and drug dealers are going to get out before you do. So anyway, this guy talked to a utility company and said, hey, I'm not interested in your customers or your privacy or any of that stuff, but what I would like to get is all of the envelopes that people sent in after you've removed their statements and checks, because you're just going to throw them away anyway. And he sifted through them and found interesting things that people had done with them. And this is my favorite one. The Post Office and the U.S. Mint both make commemorative issues. They do different figures and stuff. And the idea behind it is people pay full money for it but never actually use the service. So the Post Office just pockets the money and it's profit. But they make them much bigger stamps. And as we saw on the prepaid envelope, it doesn't take much of that green glowing taggant stuff to fool the equipment. So people were cutting the stamps in half and getting a 50% discount on their postage. So anyway, the book is kind of old, and as you can see, those were back from the 80s. So we were curious to see if this would happen. What we discovered is that the glowing taggant is actually in the glue on the stamps. So if you get a sheet of the stamps, the little edges that are waste, they glow too. And so we stuck it to an envelope. And sure enough, it still works. Not much has changed. Now, I don't know if there's any postal inspectors in the room. We, of course, got to say that we didn't commit a felony. We didn't steal anything from the post office. But we did discover that 2-cent stamps are too cheap to put this taggant in, and they don't glow. The back of the envelope, we put full postage, and actually the post office owes me a penny because it was 39 cents at the time. So, yeah, we didn't steal. This is also a much better example of the orange glowing barcodes in the back, which somehow show up on this one. Okay, so how much other fun can we have? So this is from Phreaknic, I think last year or the year before. And since we know the cancellation machine is trying to orient the envelope and that the stamp always appears in the upper right-hand corner, is there really any reason to make the machine stamp anywhere else? And we discovered, no, there really isn't. So if you put the stamp in the wrong place in the envelope, you can cause interesting stamping issues. This one here is interesting because you see the barcode is sprayed on the top instead of the bottom, and it basically processed it upside down. It's also interesting that did not add a delay to the processing, although it did add a delay to this one. And this one here, it looks like it got kind of jammed in the machine, so it doesn't count. So it is illegal to reuse a stamp, even if it's not canceled, so don't do that. But it's interesting that somebody could do it if they wanted to. And that glowing taggant appears to be waterproof, so you can peel it off the envelope. And you could physically reuse the stamp, although it's not lawful, and we've never actually done that. So we've moved on to parcels, because envelopes get kind of boring after a while. So what kind of crazy stuff can you put through the mail? I like to test limits, and the post office is very particular about some of the limits in different packages. The first one here is a payment to Bell South, because my phone line had no dial tone for about 8 weeks. And when they charged me for a service repair and didn't actually send the guy out, we decided to pay in pennies. So you remember those priority mail flat rate boxes? Yeah. 72 pounds or 74 pounds, I think, is the current limit that you can put in any mail piece, regardless of its size. And so we managed to cram our payment into one of those boxes. Let's see. Swag from a couple of years ago. Remember the Phreaknic bottles? Excellently mailable, no delay whatsoever compared to the Tracer. Except one thing. If you have fluid in it, it disappears. There have been several people who have reported taking sealed bottles of water, addressing them, applying proper postage, keeping it under the 16 ounces, well, it's 13 ounces now limit, and just gone. So we don't know. One group did have a hidden camera set up in the post office and caught the postal guy just drinking it and throwing it away. So, yeah, well, I don't know if you remember Freedom Downtime, where they got the code for the FedEx drop boxes, and they put impossibly large packages inside of it. Because the slot's only this big, so they opened up the bottom and they put a case of beer in. We're working on packages now that can self-assemble, that are that are loaded up with springs and elastic bands inside, and that are basically self-assembling origami, so that we can drop it in the slot and have it pop back open again and be impossibly large. We actually have some magicians in Florida who are helping us with that one. The one on the far end is kind of fun. James Dean's not here, but he gave me this sphere. I think it was a promotion or something at Walmart, but it was a lot of fun because it has no corners, so therefore it has no up. So we wrote an address on it. I sent it to my parents, actually. I wrote an address on it, applied proper postage, and I took it to the counter because it wouldn't fit in the drop box. And the guy looks at it and he's like, okay. He puts it on the scale, and he proceeds to turn over the computer and type in the zip code. Yeah, it rolls over the ground and goes, "Wah!" Everybody looks around like, who got shot? Who got shot? This is like a downtown Atlanta post office. So he picks it up again, just not thinking, sets it on the scale, throws it out. So he carefully takes some pencils and he builds a little triangle on the scale. So there's some barrier there, puts it on, finishes applying the postage. Then he looks at it and says, I'm going to take this to the back. So he takes it to the back and he puts it on a table or something. He comes back and he hears wham, way up in this. Yes, he did tear the scale and not charge me for the pencil weight. Anyway, it took less than 2 weeks to make it to my parents in Virginia, completely covered with dents. But the post office can handle a spherical package. So we've tried some more parcel tests, just stretching the different limits. I've not really found a minimum physical size parcel that you can send, but anything smaller than a pack of playing cards disappears. We have managed to create some packages that were under a under a cubic inch. In fact, one of them had a magnifying glass so that you could read the address. It's gone. We don't know where it is. The lightest thing we've been able to send is an empty yogurt container. We've occasionally sent some just sheets of bubble wrap, and sometimes those make it and sometimes those don't, but the yogurt containers make it there every time. The question is, are the bubbles popped? Usually not. If they roll them, then no, the bubbles are usually intact. If we send it as a loose sheet, some of the edges usually get caught. But we used really, really good bubble wrap. And they were the big 1-inch cells as opposed to the smaller ones. The smaller ones I think would actually survive pretty good. No, I haven't played with insurance yet. I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. The question with the insurance, though, comes to how it's packaged. And that it quote-unquote, has to be packaged appropriately. And the post office won't really evaluate your It's really weird. They won't evaluate your package when you drop it off, just when you file the claim. If it were a sheet of bubble wrap and I put it in an envelope, it would probably count. If it were just raw, I don't know. You're welcome to try it. I know a couple of people who have had to file legitimate insurance claims to the post office, and it's just not fun. So this is something I can slap a stamp on and send it off. And usually I do this kind of stuff while I'm on hold, so it's not like I have too much time on my hands or anything. But yeah, I don't know how many bubbles would have to be. I would definitely have to replace it with a good sheet of bubble wrap. But we've also not been able to make a 0 weight package yet or a negative weight package. Helium is one that people always come up with. A balloon is unfortunately too fragile. We've tried Tyvek, and most commercial forms of Tyvek have small enough holes in the fiber that the helium leaks out readily. I'd like to find somebody who maybe has Mylar handling equipment, and we could try something like that. But we just haven't had anybody. We're looking for volunteers to help out, though. So please, and my address is all over this. Please send me one. Question. Okay. The question was putting a balloon inside the Tyvek. Unfortunately, in order for you to make it buoyant, you would have to make it larger than the maximum shippable size package, just because of the density of the Tyvek. Helium is not really that much lighter than nitrogen. Let's see, circles and spheres, we talked about that. A fun one we did was we put addresses on sticky notes and stuck them in envelopes and packages, and found that they would remain stuck throughout the postal process. We did that about 2 years ago, and I think about 8 months ago, the post office announced that marketers apparently like this idea of putting sticky notes on the package, and that they're going to offer it as a commercial service for like another 20 cents. We were doing it 2 years ago for free. I don't see why it requires an extra 20 cents. Employee honesty is an interesting one. Annals of Improbable Research sent 20s in a clear envelope, and I don't think lost any. We've done the same thing with various denominations and other things of value, and we've never lost anything. We have, however, had a number of them that got repackaged in the postal stream. Somebody would grab an official use-only envelope and readdress it and put it inside, which tells me that most of the employees at the post office actually aren't honest, but postal employees think that other employees are dishonest. So another fun one we've done is we've sent a lot of unprotected CDs. We'll fill them up with data. We'll run an MD5 hash on the ISO, and just write the address, the inkjet label or the Sharpie or whatever, and mail it with no jewel case, no envelope, no nothing. And we get about a 95% success rate where every single bit is identical. There are scratches and marks on the disks, but for the most part, it looks like AOL is wasting a lot of paper to have envelopes. We've also been experimenting with different instruments. We've sent things like hydrothermographs through to see how hot does it get, how cold does it get, which is interesting because you can actually mail some live animals to the post office legally. So you might want your animals to survive. There's another fellow who put a camera inside the box and put a small hole and did a time lapse for the 3 or 4 days it took the package to get there, which was sort of neat. And I'm waiting for the price of tracking GPSs to come down because I would actually like to follow some of these packages in real time and see where the heck do they go when they get lost. $30? Right on. Yes, do tell me about it later. Part of the reason I'm giving this presentation is to get input from all of you guys. So we could get okay. So some tests in progress. I mentioned the colorblindness test. We have one en route right now where we're reusing the delivery confirmation barcodes. And everybody's seen these, especially if you buy something on eBay. People use it as evidence that it was delivered, even though it's not like certified mail. But our question is, if you take the same label off of a used package and put it on another package and mail it, what happens when you track it? Do you get tracking results for 2 packages, or does one of them get obliterated? And if one of them gets obliterated, this means that you can monkey with their database. So if the second one would take precedence over the first one, then that means, let's say, if I'm an eBay seller, or let's say if I'm an eBay buyer, I could receive something, I could take the label off, and I could remail it to Guam. And then I could say, oh, that eBay seller didn't send it to me. Look, you can track it on the post office's website, and it says it got to Guam. I don't live in Guam. They screwed me. I get my money back. And PayPal would eventually give you your money back. And vice versa, sellers could do that. And I could say, well, I have a certificate of mailing that says I sent you this package, when in reality it was air. And they used one of these tricks to just make their package disappear on the mail stream. So they have proof they sent it, and legally in the United States, if they mailed it, it's then your problem. So we're playing around a little bit with strange centers of gravity. We're using tungsten plating on the side of packages to make them really heavy on one side. We think there might be some assumption on the processing equipment that it's supposed to have gravity. I think some of it probably won't work in space. So we're playing with that to see what happens. I'm actually waiting on some folks at the post office to kind of give me a review on that because we don't want it to jam their processing equipment and damage other people's mail. So we're kind of waiting to hear back on that. Multiple addresses is a fun one. We've taken envelopes and postcards and put 2 different addresses on each side and put full postage on both sides. This has actually been interesting because we've used this as a way to a way to make the post office flip a coin to settle disputes. Because one side of the envelope gets canceled, and the other side remains uncanceled, and obviously it gets delivered to one person and not the other. So whoever's got the envelope then has the hey, I won the dispute, or I won the coin toss kind of thing. We haven't. Yeah, the only problem with using the post office as a random number generator is I'm not sure there's enough entropy there because the path, there's only 2 choices. Yeah. I don't know. You might be able to. We're also waiting. We need more volunteers to be recipients so that we can try this with other shaped packages. There's one. We need 6 address. All right, great. Give me your address. When we're done in Q&A, just walk up to me and give me your address. For a cube, we need at least 6 addresses. And so far, I've been having to think of how to make tetrahedrons or something because I only had 3. A cube would be much easier. So we'd like to try that and see what happens. Some neat mysteries. Post office is everybody here familiar with stamps.com? Okay. Basically, it's a print your own postage kind of thing. They're using, let's see, did I have a better one? Yeah, here we go. They're using PDF 417 barcodes and as postal evidence. There's no glowing stuff in this. The OCR system can pick it up and read it. And we're trying to get specifications for how these work because this is the data that's in it. We have a PDF 417 reader. And even from sequentially issued envelopes, we're not seeing much correlation from one to the next. Even the number of characters in each block is different from one to the next. But then there'll be random things, like the one right after this has something, 116, 353, something else. But then the ones before it don't have the same number of characters, so it doesn't line up. And they're being I think they have some sort of exclusivity agreement with Cisco, who owns Stamps.com, and they're not really inviting competition, so they're not buying my story as to why I need specifications yet. So we're kind of playing with that. But if anybody has an account and can send us more of them, we want to see how our postage meter license affects it. We really just need scans of images. You can send the stamps back in and get credit for them later, so it really doesn't cost you anything. But if you have one of these and you wouldn't mind helping us out, again, give me your name, your address afterwards. It would be kind of cool. What I'm betting is that there's additional information that's somehow encoded in this, like maybe the delivery address, so they don't have to waste time doing OCR encoding. And if that's the case, then I should be able to put a different address in this than what's actually on the envelope and cause additional fun and chaos in the postal system. Also, these do have a postnet code on the envelope as well. So we could have 3 different zip codes on the envelope on one side. I have no idea what will happen. The really interesting thing, though, to me is that the PDF barcodes are full ASCII compliant. The tall and short bars are just numbers. There's no punctuation, no symbology, anything like that, which means that now we've got a new attack vector into the computer systems. Do they have good input validation? Can you do SQL injection? I don't know, and I haven't come up with good ways to test this yet. Acidus isn't here, but I'm sure he could think of some ways. But again, we don't want to do anything. We don't want to do anything that would damage the mail stream. So we'll see there. I'm also looking for somebody who does the rebate game. I know a lot of hackers are kind of into that. What I want to see is if rebate companies are purposely designing their mail pieces to get lost in the mail. And I don't usually do the rebate thing, so I don't know. But it would make. Yeah, it would make sense. Or if nothing else, slow them down. We really did mail them. And when you mail in bulk like they do, and you get a receipt that says, you sent 50,000 mail pieces. So they kind of have evidence that they sent something. And they certainly paid a lot of money to send something. So we don't know. Let's see. Oh, yeah, other fun you can have. I guess it's probably a 150-year-old rule that's just never been obsoleted yet. But you can apply to the post office for 2 different kinds of cancellation permits. One of them is a permanent one, the one on the left, where you can cancel your own stamps. You would think that this is a date security problem, but actually you have to take it up to the counter, and they have to look at it and make sure the date's good. So you can't backdate your mail with it, and you wouldn't want to even if you could, because that's a felony. There are also probably about 300 events a month that get a special cancellation like the one at the bottom. So if we want to do something fun for Phreaknic next year, it would be neat to have our own cancellation stamp, because it's used for the entire zip code. I think there's maybe a $300 fee for that, which is like 50 cents a piece here. I would probably pay it if somebody had the time to go through the effort to do it. So mail art is fun. We talked a little bit about some of these. The one at the top corner is from Wired Return to Sender, and has everybody here seen Post Secret? It's a neat website where people write a secret on a postcard, mail it into the website, and some of them are kind of fun, like this one here. So a lot of people are also into the mail art, which is sort of wild. How weird can you make your envelope or your box? Art stamps are one of my favorites. There's a couple of different goals. Some people do this just to make stuff look neat. Other people have the goal of actually getting their mail canceled. And if you can put it on a package, which gets hand canceled, that's even better. There's been some new rules issued in the post office, and we don't know how it's going to affect art stamps yet, but I suspect they're going to survive. So this is sort of neat. All right, so I got a package for you guys. We want to get a package stuck in the mail stream for a year. So the best idea we thought of so far is to somehow make the address change in transit. I see some more hands popping up. And if you're really good at LCDs, I think that's probably the easiest way. Thermochromatic. A guy at NASA suggested formulating different kinds of thermochromatic inks or disappearing inks or something like that. But I think it would get hard to do that after a week or two. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we thought about a rolling scroll. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, or if it's tied into GPS, it'll just keep changing depending on where it's at. So, but then we also have the problem: how do you? Yeah. Well, if it doesn't use very much power, then the actual motion and vibration of the package going through the mail stream could provide its own power. And so maybe that would require e-paper or something like that. I don't know. But yeah, those are some neat things to think about. And then, of course, it has to survive the abuse of the mail stream. So a cardboard box is not going to cut the mustard. I'm thinking we'll probably use something like a milk crate to form an exoskeleton. Yeah, there's various ways you can reinforce it without adding a whole lot of weight to it. So, visit with me afterwards and we'll talk about some of those. Oh, that's true, yeah. You know what? If it's heavy, we could use a flat rate box. I'm sorry? Pens that fade, yes, I would be interested in that. Yes, I would be interested in learning more about that. I don't think that's quite perfect for this project, but it might be interesting to test some other stuff. If nothing else, you could use that on a certified mail receipt. You could write in ink the address it went to and get it stamped, and then change the address it was sent to later. Huh. Okay. Yeah, something maybe reacted with nitrogen or oxygen. Yeah, and I'm not a chemist enough to make any of this stuff myself, and unfortunately, disappearing ink just gets the gag stuff on Google, so I haven't really been able to find it. 2 weeks to fade. Wow, so you don't want to use that on contracts or anything like that. Check 21, or maybe you do. Yeah. So fun stuff. So if you have a really important, always make sure somebody uses your pen. Question. Yeah. But you can only do that twice. So unless you can make it a reversing reaction that'll keep flipping, but then you have to make sure that it doesn't flip, that it doesn't get out of phase. Because if you have a New York address and a California address, you want them to be opposite of wherever the package is at that time. So. Yeah. Yeah. I actually hadn't heard about that, so I'll have to Google it. With Check 21, I don't think that's going to work too well, but yeah. Yeah. Well, they're doing that because they're actually just trading the image files instead of the actual checks. So it's September 11 fallout. People occasionally ask me what the ethical considerations of this are. Don't steal from the post office simply because if you get caught, the ass sex I'm sure would be horrible. I don't think you will have any prison cred for stealing 41 cents in postage. Don't harm other people's mail, and so you got to really be careful as you send stuff through because you don't want things to jam in high-speed machines and just start crumpling up people's stuff. It's not really your fault, but still. And be nice to postal people because it's a federal offense for you to shoot them. It's only a state felony for them to shoot you. No postal employee has ever made any negative comments about what I do. A couple of them have had strange looks. A lot of them have thought it's really cool. A lot of them say, hey, it's really cool. Let us know how it turns out. And some of them come up with ideas. They just we just need somebody else to do it besides us. So they're actually pretty cool about it. My email address is up here for people who want to email me some of the ideas you've had. And I do have one more package that I brought with me today. The maximum size you can send to the post office on a non-priority rate is 104 inches combined length and girth. So we made a package that was the maximum size and mailed it. Yeah, complete with some funny marks and lots of stamps. It is under 16 ounces, so we didn't have to explain it to the post office. We just jammed it in one of those street sign ones. Unfortunately, it kind of sprang back up underneath a little flappy thing, and nobody else could put anything in it the rest of the day. So we regret that we may have caused some people some inconvenience. They had to actually walk inside the building to mail their stuff. So keep that in mind if you try to reproduce it. But it's really funny because the postal guy came back out. This is obviously too big to fit in my post office box, and so he comes out of the back when I brought him the yellow slip, and he's just like, I don't know what this is or why somebody would mail it. And all the non-postal employees in the back or in the line are just laughing their asses off because they get the joke. So it takes a certain unintelligence to be a postal employee, I guess. So. I don't know if they can use pi. They probably have a table that says if your cylinder is this big around, it can only be this long or something like that. There are a couple of size-wise containers at my post office is big, so they have some size-wise containers that it has to fit in. And if it doesn't fit in A, it can fit in B or fit in C. If it doesn't fit in any of those, they refuse it. So they really don't have to understand any math there. But that's all I've got. I'm open for questions. I don't know everything about this stuff, but how are we doing on time? Okay. Well, tell me when we're running short on time, and we'll clear out. Oh, okay. Excellent. Question? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a very good point. I forgot to mention this. We have actually found that clear things vanish in the postal stream. I mean, like 80% of the clear stuff we send, like if we take a book, put it in a Ziploc bag, put the address inside, put the stamps on the outside, it's gone. We never see it. It doesn't get returned to sender, nothing. I've even gone so far as to go to like the mail recovery auction in Atlanta and see if you can find it. And no sign as best I can tell, but they have like piles of books there. So yeah, if you want something to get lost, a Ziploc bag seems to be a great way to do it. We found the opposite with like FedEx and UPS. Shortly after the anthrax scare and whatnot in Washington, D.C., we were sending stuff to government offices in clear packages because it would clear security faster. So UPS and FedEx like it. The mail apparently doesn't. There was another question over here. Go for it. No, we have not tried sending anything to the space station yet. The Bedrock, Colorado is the closest I've gotten to that, but I'll have to try that. Being that that's a location that's moving, that would be interesting. So, I haven't seen anybody do it recently, and I think the automated equipment would tend to kick it out. But if you ran it, sometimes you can route mail in ways that don't go through the automated stuff. So, yeah, you might be able to. There's some places also the addresses are tied to the GPS coordinates. So. Yes, that was the delivery point. In very rare cases, it can be. If you're a large mail if you're a large mail recipient, you can actually get your own code, and they send you your stuff in bins and boxes and whatnot. What we've generally found to be the case if I were like send it to my house with that in it, is that the mailman doesn't know which box to put it in. So if it's just the barcode or just the numbers, if it has my name on it, then yeah, he knows who I am and he'll put it in the right box. But that last 30 feet, they need a clue. Yeah. Yes, they have their own zip code. Mhm. Mhm. Interesting. Send it to me. Let me take a look. That would be interesting. 'Cause I can decode these pretty easily. I mean, they're just zeros and ones. Yeah. Interesting stuff. A question in the back? Yeah, and that gets you down to like within a block. So your mail carrier just knows that the Smith lives in this house. So, but if you put a different name on there, then it would probably get returned to sender. So, I think we have time for one last question. Bueller. All right on. Yeah, send me your ideas. I guess I've bumped off that screen, but yeah, hit me up afterwards. I got to clear out for the next guy. So, thanks.